No, I think it's this is open to the public, right? Yeah.
All about.
I took it by him. I took it by him when I said, I was like, this is a lot. I'm good at science, I'm not good at math. So, and the science about math, but if it's actually science, I'm perfectly fine. So, physically, I'm having trouble with math, but other science, I got you. That's why I never did. My nephew was like, he's a bad and your mom was not I do have
I need to. So what happened with Ezra? No, Eastern Shore. Yeah.
I was seeing the line.
the trainings we do around the world, in the US. I mean, 2008.
Hold on a second. Hey, Paul, so are y'all doing the meet and greet now? So let me just say this: all the TCTAC and match partners, go to the round table. There you go. You got it? Okay, go ahead. And it's nothing complicated, as Paul is saying. I mean, we had a different plan, but we're gonna modify, right, Paul? So basically, it's a get to know and talking about what we're doing and what you bring to the table. Go ahead, Paul. Adrian made the announcement. Vermont talked about the Mid-Atlantic Environmental Justice Fund and the Urban Forestry Grant. It's trying to build this bigger fund. That's the network is supporting that, and the Chesapeake Bay Trust is the parent on that. So they've been very supportive. So as we move forward on helping to get the actual dollars, they'll be a partner with those actual. Oh, thank you. They'll be a partner. I'm loud. They'll be a partner to help with that. So thank you for that, Jamie. Will you pass the mic?
Hello, Adam Hodges. I'm with West Virginia State University Extension Service. I'm the program leader for community and economic development there. I feel like we bring to the table some really great national connections with our 1890 HBCUs across the country. We meet with them regularly and work on joint projects. I just got back from Atlanta, where we're working on a research project around climate change. We are working all 19 of the 1890 HBCUs that are land grants, are working between research and extension to try to get some real data around how climate change is impacting communities of color and socially underserved farmers and landowners. As you know, land grant is based around agriculture. And so I feel like that kind of data would be extremely helpful to the efforts that we have. A lot of times that's what some of this additional funding could be based on is if we can show the numbers that communities of color have a higher rate of being impacted by climate change and environment, which we know is true. I mean, that's our hypothesis, but we still have to get the data to prove it. So.
Which way will it go, Paul? This way? Okay. Yeah, y'all know me, so let's go skip.
I'm just Kathy Martin, and I know Maria. No, I'm from Oklahoma. So I'm an engineer, and I've been working on CAFO issues for the last 25 years in 25 different states all over the country, working with people that live across the street from CAFO. So I have a lot of experience being in somebody's kitchen talking about real issues.
And you're the technical consultant for Section Shed.
Yes, please. Yes.
Hi, Maria Payan. I am with Sussex Health and Environmental Network, co-founded also with Sentinels of Eastern Shore Health. What's he looking at? Oh, he was pointing. So we work on with frontline fence line communities all throughout the Delmarva Peninsula, Sussex County, especially in Delaware, where it is poultry production is the largest industry that we have there, and the lower Eastern Shore, that's been for decades. So we try to help them navigate through this and protect our waterways, protect health. And that's what we do.
Michael Payan, also co-founder, Sentinels of Eastern Shore Health, Sussex Health and Environmental Network. Do a lot related on the Eastern Shore to the poultry industry, community science, site fights with community-based organizations that are looking to fight something in their neighborhood that's, not benefiting them. So everything related to those activities.
Go around.
Sorry, I'm not in the circle. Hey there.
Sit here. I was
Okay.
trying to figure out who was pointing behind me. I didn't know where you
Well, good Thursday, everyone. I'm Queen Shabazz, founder of United Parents Against Lead and CEO for the Virginia Environmental Justice Collaborative. We are match partners and as well as it's supposed to be TCTAC partners. So I'd like to find out what's happening with that representing Virginia. We've actually created Virginia's first solar-powered community resiliency hub, and I will share more about that if you will attend our session at 3:30. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I'm Parisa Noruzi, Director of Empower DC, and we're happy to be part of MATCH and the TCTAC partnership. We're the convener of the DC Environmental Justice Coalition, and I'm excited that our newest coalition manager is here. She'll introduce herself, and one of our member groups is here as well. Empower DC is a grassroots organizing organization citywide. And the EJ work that we're most involved in has to do with land use, the impacts of industrial land, air quality issues, heat island effect. and related, degradation of quality of life in Black and Brown communities that have been surrounded and disproportionately impacted by pollution sources, particularly Ivy City, Brentwood, and Ward 5 in DC.
Ray Michael Bridgewater, a member of Empowerment DC, and also President, CEO of the Assembly of Petworth, which is representing the Petworth area where we have a bus bond in a residential area. So we're looking at air, water, and soil issues.
Hello, my name is Sumaira Poole. I'm part of CAF's Eco Promoters program, and we recently just worked on a book talking about environmental justice and climate change and things related to those issues. And we also did many other projects related to climate change and things like that. So I just wanted to just introduce myself.
And you can purchase the book later. One of the characters is named after someone you know. So that's the teaser.
Yeah, my name is Rafael Poole. I'm also part of the Eco Promoters program. I drew the book, so yeah.
And I'll pass it around so you guys can see it. My name is Walkiria Poult. I'm the founder and president of Centro de Apoyo Familiar, or Center for Assistance to Family, CAF. We are based 10 minutes from here, so right here in Prince George's County. We work very heavily with the faith-based and the Latino community, mobilizing them, organizing them on issues related to environmental justice. We are hoping to have a good representation on Saturday who will be coming to see what is happening, as well as what we're able to do with the youth. For the first time, we were able to put a summer program where they had the opportunity to not just educate themselves, create a book, but also present to our first-time homebuyers seminar where there were over 80 participants about indoor environmental health and also climate change. We are been working with Magic as well, TCTAC and Match Partner. So thank you.
Good morning, close to afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacy Lucas, and I am the Environmental Justice Manager at Empower DC. I'm really, really excited to be here. I'm really excited starting my new role at Empower DC. And I just look forward to bringing some of my knowledge and skills and resources to make sure that Black and Brown folks have access to information and know where to get it and know how to use it. So thank you for having us here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Kokolas. I'm a program manager at the Environmental Finance Center here at the university. I work mainly on community engagement around stormwater and water quality issues, and I'll let Modessa talk more about our role.
Good morning, everyone. Modessa Virian, Environmental Finance Center, and EFC is one of the core partners in the TCTAC project, as well as the match. And really our core role is to develop resources and help communities find and write grants. So trying to help directly connect communities through resources and technical assistance to be able to apply for those funds and get them in the door. So we'll be working with all of the hub partners to do a needs assessment, figure out, what everyone needs, and then we will be there to help support you.
Hi, everyone. Natalia Sanchez, also with the Environmental Finance Center, and I think Modessa summed us up really well. So.
Hello, Paul Cavanaugh from Siege, and I work with grant development.
My name is Jerome Shabazz, the other Shabazz, hail to the Queen.
Not really.
Oh, you better tell Steve that, right? And I'm the executive director of the Overbrook Environmental Education Center. I'm in Philadelphia, PA, Region 3. Also the executive director of Jazz Tech Development Services, Inc. And Jazz Tech, I'll give you a little trivia, is an acronym for Juveniles Active in Science, Technology, and Health. Here with our president, Roosevelt Sanders, We're really, really excited to be amongst such wonderful hub partners on the match and for the TCTAC, and looking forward to robust conversation and getting to know my colleagues a little better.
Greetings, my name is Kim Gaddy. I am the founder and executive director of the Southward Environmental Alliance. I am also a member of Region 2 TCTAC. WEAC is the lead organization for us. We are a member of the match. My staff member will explain more about the organization. And, you know, we work on issues around ports, cumulative impacts of pollution. We fought to get the first cumulative impacts law passed in New Jersey, and so now we're trying to take that on the road.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Asada Rashidi. I am the environmental justice organizer for Southward Environmental Alliance. We are an alliance of residents and community-based organizations with a focus on environmental justice, specifically in the Southward of North. We want to make sure that our residents are informed, empowered, and engaged in the environmental issues and policies that impact their health and quality of life. I lead and manage our air quality monitoring project. So we have a Purple Air network system, and we work with Siege to develop that. And we also do truck counts as well. And as Ms. Gaddy mentioned, we are a Match Hub partner.
Very good. My name is Daryl Harris. I am a fellow at the Johns Hopkins Center for Livable Future. I work on environmental justice issues as it pertains to food production.
Hi, I'm Dee Williams, and I'm also at the Johns Hopkins Center for a Livable Future. Not officially part of any match or TCTAC. However, I've worked with Maria and Michael for a while now, looking at CAFO issues and food system issues and environmental justice.
My name is Mark Barnes, and I am a Dr. Seuss fan. Oh, the places you'll go and the places that I've been. I'm a geographer, by the way, and I'm a Philadelphia guy, so it's really great to hear. I grew up 24th in Ridge, 28th in Allegheny. Yep. But my role as, I guess, the director, if you will, for the HBCU Hub is to enable and assist HBCUs sort of in visualizing the work that they do, because oftentimes that's not seen. And so bringing HBCUs across the Region 3 together is that work in central places to be able to showcase and then also to attract. So my work actually in Philadelphia, many moons ago, I was at the University of Pennsylvania and working with community university partnerships. And so ensuring that both the universities and communities that they work with are able to better link together and to grow the influence that they have. That's it. Thanks.
Did everybody introduce themselves? I think I started.
Okay, thanks. Hi, my name is Louise Leaf. I'm the founder of the Science and Media Project. I work with philanthropy, media, and nonprofits, focusing on civic engagement and collaborative approaches. So I do a couple of things. I look at what models work and what don't. I've looked at community science and written about the Siege programs as well. And I'm particularly interested in exemplars, programs that work well. One of my main audiences is philanthropy, and as I'm sure a lot of you know, philanthropy is not as engaged as it could be or should be in this whole sector. And up until a couple of years ago, there was almost no money going to EJ. So I'm looking at ways we can encourage philanthropy to become more involved. One of the things I'm looking at is the grant applications and the frustration that many groups like you have with the grant applications that do not have provisions for paying community partners and community activists. A lot of times the universities get all the money, and then in some cases there are prohibitions for paying the community groups. So anyone who's had frustration with a grant application, I would love to hear your anecdotes about and your stories about how and suggestions of how the applications can more accurately reflect the needs of the communities and the resource needs, and how that can be put into a different kind of application. So I'm looking both at how the programs work and how the systemic and structures of philanthropy can better support the work that you do.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, our session, again, on Friday, philanthropy, was it, Jamie, philanthropy, seed and power? Today, sorry, Thursday. So we'll have some of that discussion actually today about that. And when we were at the TCTAC meeting yesterday, we talked about, the Just Fund and the common application. So having a common application, simplified application is one of the things that we suggested during the meeting with the TCTACs yesterday. But what I want to do next is really just kind of talk about, so thanks everybody for giving that introduction. What we want to be able to do as a center, with Siege, and as we engage with the TCTAC and Match, is making sure that you see we have a lot of the partners with the same partners for both TCTAC and Match. That's not by accident, that's on purpose. So we have core institutional partners. The Environmental Finance Center is a partner on Match, on TCTAC. Siege is also a partner on the Environmental Finance Center's awarded TA project, which I don't think y'all talked about. But so I'll pass the mic back, water TA, but that's also Region 3 funding to address similar communities, but more focused on water-related infrastructure. Is that a good summary? Yeah. So that infrastructure, so those resource-constrained, low capacity, hard to reach urban communities, but also very much maybe more prioritized rural communities. And so when you think about our Region 3, as I mentioned in my earlier comments, we are expanding our hubs through the TCTAC, but we want to also make sure we activate and engage as much of the infrastructure we do have that's already engaged in rural communities in Region 3. So Adam's work with the Extension Service of West Virginia State, other land grants that we have in the region who have extension services. That's something to put on our to-do list, everyone. Also, the Environmental Finance Center has already stated. And we have other groups. What's the Appalachian Consortium?
Are you talking about the Appalachian Regional Commission?
The
ARC?
Commission. Yeah, the ARC. So the ARC. So there's other groups we want to engage on the rural side. But what we also want to do when we think about going back to our community hub partners, the idea has been we want to this. So I appreciated Robin again. I'm messing with her a little bit. She said we don't have a capacity issue. We have an access issue. We do have a capacity issue, as I said earlier. We do have a capacity issue in many ways. So one of the things we want to try to address, in parallel capacity and access through our approach was to make sure that as we have Match and TCTAC, we have these hubs and we make sure the hubs are getting funding. So through Match, which is funded by Robert Johnson Foundation again, the community hubs are getting $50,000. It's not a lot. We have a re-granting process where each year one, year two, we're going to be giving out $20,000 to 10 groups. So Match is both a technical assistance, meaning TCTAC, and also pass-through, as I said earlier. Now, many of the same community hubs on Match are also community hubs on the TCTAC. Those community groups are getting, many of them are getting $140,000. That were in the initial set of organizations. And then we have the additional TCTACs are getting $100,000. We had a long conversation about equity, et cetera, and trying to figure that out. But so general, you have groups getting between $150,000 to $190,000. Now, we also apply for the EPA grant makers. And y'all can correct me. I believe the hubs will get, is it $300,000? If that gets funded, 300,000 that gets funded. So what we're trying to do is stack dollars for our community groups so they have the capacity to hire staff and maintain their staff. And then the core partners would do it. We do a lot of co-design, co-created trainings, as Walkeria said, training programs, right? And then the hubs would then go out into the geographic area coverage to do outreach and engagement in their own training in those areas. But what I want to do next, and I'll pass this mic back around, so we all have all this great work, and we have we want to have synergy. What do you see as challenges and barriers to making sure that the match and TCTAC work well? I want to, any of the partners who want to chime in on that. What do you see as challenges and barriers that you already experienced, for example, with your work plans, for example? We have a lot of, I'll make this point, and I think a point was just made about academic institutions. On the match, Maryland is the primary, but I think the indirect IDC rate was only 10%, I believe. It was only 10%. Maryland is not the primary on the TCTAC because it would have been, I think, 39% IDCs. So Federation, the IDC rate, is it 5% or 10%? It's 10%. So we want to make sure that we are not replicating some, as I said, extractive capitalism by having academic institutions as the leads on these, and that's part of the reason why we have our structure. But we also, from what we've experienced with Match, our community partners, we got that funding announcement in December of 2022. Some of our match partners, y'all can, let me be positive. Which match partners got in your first check? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3. We have 8 community partners. December of 2022. It is now September, almost October 2023. That is not good when you're doing community work. When folks have limited capacity, they're trying to ramp up and hire staff, right? And then we're expecting folks, and y'all know we've had real talk about this. I know I've asked y'all to do things, and I'm very sensitive about y'all not doing much because you ain't been paid. And we can't do reimbursement. That's another problem of doing reimbursement style. So you do the work and you get reimbursed. That model does not work for community groups. That was also one of the comments that was made yesterday in the TCTAC meeting. We have to be giving upfront money to community-based organizations so they can ramp up, hire their staff, and be able to do the work. So those are 2 challenges that have come out of our work over this past year because of our institutional structures and systems. Now I want to pass the mic to some of the hub partners to say, what other challenges or barriers do you think will be that you're experiencing and things we need to address moving forward to make sure that we can have good synergy and good impact between the match and TCTAC? I see Walkeria's hand. I'll pass the mic. How many mics do we have? Oh. Okay, we got one introduction first, and then we'll go to questions.
My name is Steve Shabazz. I'm Zacchaeus Shabazz's husband. I am the only instructor in Pittsburgh, Virginia, at the only Virginia hub.
Yeah, good afternoon. One of the other challenges, in addition to the funding, the cash flow, which is one of the biggest issues that our organization sometimes has to face with, is the fact of capacity building. How do we structure this issue that now has come up, because we have to come up with the money ahead of time, sometimes getting into debt, which doesn't look good in our books. We have to go get equity line, and then paid in front and then wait. And so it's just becoming a really messy situation, especially when we starting having a conversation with our CPA. They don't understand our books. And it is just an additional capacity issue as an organization that we have to deal with, that is just becoming frustrating. In addition to that, we work very closely with the Latino community. A lot of our budget is being just focused on a program that will run throughout the community, but we have to add so many other line items that are there with translators, getting things, provided in access to language access to our community. And that's something that sometimes is hard to explain to our funders, why we have to put additional funding to our work, because a lot of our staff that has to be bilingual. It's hard to find it. Getting educated people to the level that you need, we don't find a lot. One of the things that we're hoping now to do is start creating programs through the Train the Trainer, where we'll start recruiting more people and educating more people in this field. You don't find a lot of organizers. You don't have a lot of people wanting to get into this work. One, because first of all, there's not a lot of training, there's not good paid, all of these add up. So how can we start, adding to, kind of working on a situation that will help organizations that are really targeting and helping and serving the community the way that it's supposed to be, and building capacity and building this infrastructure that is needed in order to be sustainable. The second and third thing that I want to say is what's going to happen 3 years from now. A lot of this funding is only 3 years. So we hire people. We had this fear, what if we're not able to sustain these positions afterward? And so all of that is putting into consideration how we're going to make this sustainable in the long run. And I'll pass it over to you.
Thank you. One of the things that we've been advocating, and my son was poisoned about 28 years ago, so by lead. And so I've been doing this work for 26 years this September. One of the things that we've been advocating for are community-controlled funds, so that the money comes from the funder directly into the hands of the community, the organizations that are doing the work, because whether it's academic or big greens, the funds oftentimes don't get to the communities that they're supposed to serve. So if we can cut out those middle people and get the money into the hands of the community, we'll see this work being done, and we'll see it continue, because you don't have those percentages that they take off the top, but all of the money will go to those organizations and to the communities. And so community control funds is what I would advocate for.
Okay, not to belabor the fiscal issues, but just to punctuate the challenges associated with it, carrying some of these expenses on our books. And it's not just carrying it, it's carrying it beyond fiscal cycles. So we're going into new years, and we have the same burdens of accounting responsibilities to explain how that works. So at some point, we're going to have to structure what that looks like, so that if it's sort of structured as an annuity, there's some opportunities where you have to get reimbursements. We need to be able to describe what that relationship looks like, because we're booking the time of our workers for resources that have been allocated, but it's not allocated in a descriptive way. Right. I have some grants where you get reimbursed and it's in cycles, you're going to get paid in certain cycles, but we're not able to do that yet. And we need to make sure that we get ahead of it, because we're going into like an entire calendar year, which may cross over. Some of our fiscal years are not lined up necessarily with calendar years. So we wanted to put that out there. The second thing, I'm hopeful that we can come up with some strategies where we don't have repetitive costs. For example, translation services. Now with the civil rights preparations that we have to have for organizations, and I don't know how many of us have gotten recent EPA grants, you have to have a policy now for different types of disabilities, for language disabilities. You have to have for people with physical disability, you have to have a policy for that as part of our civil rights standards. And so we've had to, because our predominant and the demographics that we have offered for our funding agencies have identified how Spanish is like a primary, secondary language for a lot of our constituents. We have to have a policy in place for that interpretation services. So we've had to actually hire companies to do it, but I'm imagining that all of the match partners would need similar types of services. But in my region alone, there's 126 languages that are spoken of Asian dialects. So we have to have an agency ahead of available to us. So maybe even from a centralized perspective, where we can refer people to that service, so that each hub doesn't have to figure out where they're going to get those resources from. Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess it goes to a bigger point that has been on my mind is that some intake work should be centralized before it goes to the hub in order for us to, one, keep a matrix of it all. In other words, if one of our hub partners have a good mechanism for tracking and another one doesn't, we're going to lose the ability to report out on the type of engagement that's been taking place for the entire Mid-Atlantic region. Whereas if it was a centralized intake and it could be just technology, bounce you to or refer you to or divert you to that hub once people answer certain preliminary questions, I think it'll be more streamlined. It'll enable us to have greater matrix on how many calls that we've gotten, and it'll do a better job enabling us to determine how well we've turned around responses by way of the initial requests.
Adrian, can you respond to that? And then we'll go to Kim after Adrian responds.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to respond to the second thing you said, Jerome. I think that's great. Good idea. And I'm wondering if we could use the 1-800 number in that way.
Yeah.
Like the way we had set it up, or the way we want to set it up, because
we talked about by state.
Yeah, about that in the database that we are planning to create once we hire some people, is that person would have a database like Airtable or something, who called from, where they called from, where they, what they wanted, whether they wanted services, and if so, who are you, and do you work with, for, are you EJ? Because if not, and then, or are you volunteering some service, because nothing's, is
Adrian,
paid
what was the language we used? I used something in triage. I forget what's the other part. What did I say on the calls? Something.
Triage.
Triage and tier.
Yeah, because
So
it's tier.
Yeah, we're triaging with tier. Tier 1, 2, 3 will be services.
Yeah.
And 4 and 5 will be for partners. Something
Well,
like that.
well, if you call a number and they say you're calling to partner, then press 0.
Right.
And then they can leave a message. And then the other ones have tiers 1 through 8 right now. And it's depending if you want, for example, health assessment or whatever. But we also ask them for information on where they are, where they're located, so that we could, how easy would it be to just put that in information for an organization? Like, Jerome, you had 5 calls for you, like that.
You route it to us, and you have to centralize all the calls. In other words, we're centralizing it.
Yeah, that's what we want to do with the calls. I'm gonna say, but what we also talked about, we got to find a way, because having people do that is great. I'm not a big fan of AI because I'm all, asking them all for the 3 rules and Terminator. But having the AI take care of that will be way more efficient than having the person do that. I just want to say that. But thank you for all those points. Centralization as relates to intake, the triage and tier, centralization as relates to language services support. And that may be something that I don't think we could do. We might have to go to the national. I just want to say on this record, the national TCTACs provide support for all the TCTACs to make sure we have language services support for each regional TCTAC. So just want to say that.
I think we should have like a list of things we need from, because their purpose is to support us.
Yeah, the national TCTACs. Yeah, so go. I know you've been waiting a while, Kim. Go ahead, Kim. Thank you, Jerome.
Yeah, one of the things that I would like to bring up is succession planning. Some of us have been in this space for a long time. I'm going on 24 years, but we're bringing up the next generation. And so we need that kind of training to kind of move them along. And I think we need to be intentional about that, because a lot of our expertise, we're moving up and moving out. And then the second piece, being the National and New Jersey Environmental Justice Director for Clean Water Action, we're a 501c3 and C4. A lot of the laws and bills that we pass, because we can partner with a 501c4 and do some additional lobbying. I think we need to find a space where we are actively talking about that and strategically having organizations within certain regions who can be that lead force. And so I know that's something that I'm looking into, but I think that's how we lose our power, because then we can't hold those elected officials and create the kind of legislation in a way that we need to, because the big greens who have that status, is at the forefront, pulling us with them.
So I'll just say real quickly. So there's been some conversation about the C4 part, but then the barriers of bringing in C4 is because of how the funding is set up. So we got to think about that we had a conversation about our match funding, and also we've had a conversation about the do's and don'ts for the TCTAC funding. So that has to be something that's separate and apart from, but we can leverage what we're doing to support that. But and then also I think in the discussion yesterday, I think maybe even the seed and power discussion, the philanthropy session, we're going to talk about how do you loosen up the rules. So maybe you can't loosen the rules on the federal side, but loosen up the rules on the foundation side to give people more opportunity on the C4s and to do more of the lobbying, do more in the advocacy. So that's something that just to put on the table as we leverage again our partnerships with the philanthropic sector within the region. And Jim, you want to respond to that real quick? Let's pass. I know where you've been holding this mic for a while. Let's pass it. Bring it back.
And then I want to respond to then Kim said after that.
I mean, I just want to throw this question out related to this conversation, which is, I mean, there are active conversations in each of the states in Region 3 around C4 funding, right? That are not issue specific, right? But are very much active in terms of how they can engage and align private C4 dollars around each of the election cycles. If and when there's a need or an opportunity to think about how to connect this work, but really the larger EJ movement within that C4 funding conversation, I think it'd be great to do, right? I think it's needed in every state. And the ability for the environmental justice voicers to be at those C4 tables is it varies highly in each of the states. So one. Two, I think there's a big question that is where there's a big difference between private philanthropy and what they can and can't do and all of this federal money that's flowing out of here. And that is around building long-term power. And so this question about C4 to me says, how does this work that's going to be happening that's really sort of nuts and bolts, boots on the ground, get dollars to help improve communities, how does that translate into building long-term power in the movement? That's a question around advocacy, policy, coalition building. That's not C4. That can be all kinds of different kinds of dollars if you're thoughtful and intentional about it. And that's why I'm here, is to learn and hear where your ideas are and how private dollars can kind of be sort of helpful in that piece of this, which is a small piece compared to all these federal dollars that are coming out, but a powerful one.
Well, but while you get in, let me say something. One of the things we learned yesterday, or one of the things that was brought up yesterday at the White House, was the role that foundations can play in at least helping us advance. Well, this is very specific when it comes to making sure that communities get the funds that they need up front to do the work. Remember, there was a discussion about maybe foundations can help in that regard. I don't know. I don't think any decision was made or any kind of plan or anything, because it seemed to me some of the foundations were surprised that they were going to have this role when I talked to a couple of them. But, that's one thing. And I agree with what you said about the C4. And before I forget what Kim said, I was just thinking that, like, I know I'm going to be hiring a program manager and 2 EJ analysts. And it seems like if other people are hiring, it would be great to have training that encompasses everybody, because I would love to have some community leaders. I used to do this when I taught at FAMU, was have community come in and teach, because you can't learn that kind of thing in a book. And you can't just read about it in a flat fact sheet. You got to hear it from the people. And so I'm wondering if we need to, think about, to your first point, putting this all in, try to coordinate trainings, because it's hard to find people who have experience in EJ, like you say. I mean,
that's a big. So I know I should be talking. That's a big issue. And that's why EJ goes for them hills. That was that part of what that session was about, y'all. All these people all of a sudden come to EJ, have no EJ experience, getting these positions. So I think as it relates to the TCTAC and match, getting back to sustainability and durability, that you and then going back to the question too, the leadership training piece, and also what Kyria has made that point several times on our calls about youth leadership training, make sure youth are engaged for the succession, and having the right people trained to fill these positions. And I was going to say, having a shared pool of applicants across our programs too, TCTAC, match, EFC. That's something and other things as well in the regions. I know, Maria, you've been waiting like 15 minutes. I'm gonna stop. Go ahead, Maria. Go ahead, Maria.
So I agree, firstly, with everything that was said here. And I came into this space because of exposure from my family. You know, I was the one pulling this one out of the tub with blisters all over his body. Honestly, you know, with asking agencies what's going on and no help. This one was trying to figure out why he was coming out with blisters. I mean, this is how long this has gone on. And finally, this opportunity is getting the money to where it needs to go on the ground. Because it's capacity building. Like Jamie said, it is working where we see the needs, and the folks where we see the needs, they're working 2 to 3 jobs, okay? They're relying on folks like us to empower and uplift their voices, to find their voices, not for us to speak for them. And I'll say from like the little mini grants from Magic that went, Jacoby will tell you, we have a session here that's from a community that we have been working with on the ground. As a matter of fact, EPA just opened the Title VI administrative complaint. That's the groundwork and working and empowering their voices. So this works, but it has to work in a way like the things that we're talking about are real. You know, walking into something, a challenge like this, I'm not scared of challenges, but finances are part of it. I need healthcare at my age. You know, I cannot work for a year for free, dig into my pocket, because guess what? I'm not wealthy. I'm not wealthy. If I are hiring people, I'm pulling it out of my bank account. I'm saying, oh my God, if the next check doesn't come in, I'm gonna miss a mortgage payment. And that can't happen. So if we understand, like we finally found the way to get things done, and it's not one entity that can do it. I think of it like a wreath, like weaving, you know, you need the academia, you need the citizen science, you need all of the community hubs that are uplifting in the region. You need National Wildlife Foundation, Jamie, we're all part of what we're finding to be success, but it needs some tweaks. And, you know, I'm an optimist. I'm a believer in you don't back up. You face that challenge and right. And that's what we're trying to do. So this is really important. So thank you everyone for coming out and, you know, hearing this.
So other comments. I mean, we talked about challenges and barriers. Oh, Parisa, and then I want to move. I have to go from challenges and barriers. I want to move to solutions, best practices that you may have as community or other partners who are in the room. So go ahead, Parisa.
Just echoing a lot of what you all have said, but I wonder if we've really stopped to define the true cost of this work. I know we're going after a little bit of money there, a little bit of money there. And from our perspective at Empower DC, so far the work is sucking capacity and not building capacity, because it's not, we're not at a point where we're at true cost, you know, much less even at growth cost. So, and I think if we could, I know it's unique for each place, but if we could, you know, map that out a little bit and really look at, and let's not forget that the grassroots work is extremely labor intensive. It has to be consistent. It has to be ongoing. You can't do one thing here and then you don't talk to people for a few months until there's another, you know, it has to be, especially when you're really training, working with youth, really trying to build that pipeline, right? So I would love to see if there's a way for us to map that out a little bit. And then, yes, we need the experts. We need the folks who, you know, do a health impact assessment or understand the air quality monitoring, but we also need to translate it in a user-friendly way for our communities. It can't, and there's a lot of labor there that also is often, you know, sort of not ignored, but, you know, kind of not spoken about. It's like invisible labor. So just want to bring that up.
No, I think the true costs really, really important. In general, I think as part of the product of this work, we should be laying out those true costs as it relates to living wage, all the work that you do, all the hours, what's the rate per hour. That's important to get that feedback to the federal government, right? To say this is how much it really costs to run this project and do this work, get these deliverables, and how these impacts we want to have. So I think that's something that we could do as part of our evaluation of both match and the TCTAC. So I'm open to that. I was going to respond to Queen's comment about academia. Queen, I'm 100% behind you and what you're saying about academia. I know I'm academic, but that's just one hat I wear. So, for example, the Urban Forestry grant that was just funded, again, didn't know, Chesapeake Bay Trust is the parent on that, not University of Maryland, because the IDC rate, I think, is 5%. On that, I think on that grant, I don't remember. It's like 5% on that grant. It's about 5%. So that's also, I think, the same IDC rate. If the grant makers gets funded, it's 5%. So if you had an academic institution doing that, it will not be 5%, right? So we want to make sure that we are following like the community. I'm gonna give a shout out to Omega Wilson, community-owned and managed research, equity in funding, parity in management is community-driven. That's the ethics and principles I try to bring, again, as I said earlier in response to comment from I forget his name, from North Carolina, like being raised up the EJ movement. That's the framework that I want us to, that ethos I want us to bring to this space, to our work. So I'll stop talking. And who wants to go next about, so what are those best practices, solutions, things that worked in your community that you want to share with your fellow hub partners, that we can make sure we're working and scaling up across our region? Go ahead, Walkiria.
Yeah, I guess I also wanted to mention the importance of leveraging what is being done in the community. For instance, I mentioned our home ownership program. We do in first-time homebuyers classes. We leverage some of this opportunity funding and also clients where we bring the information about environmental justice work. Now, it makes sense for them when they buy in a home. We talk about solar panel. We talk about indoor pollution, what happens, asthma prevention. That's where you get people's attention, because you're able to connect it with something that is tangible. And so we've been trying to, wherever we go and whatever we do, bring in environmental justice work in all we do. We do workforce development on CDL transportation training. So we talk to people about, clean energy. That's where we use that opportunity to introduce the concept, and people start making, like, the aha moment comes when, I didn't know environmental justice was connected to this. And so we have to start using best practices, connecting with tangible issues that people can identify with and connect, and use that opportunity, that window right there, to organize the community, educate the community, and at the same time have them be involved in this movement. Because as Parisa was saying, we need to be consistent, and part of our failure in the past, and I will be honest, with the EPA fund, there was that we got it 1 year, then 5 years later we get it back. And so we lost momentum, and it was like a roller coaster, getting the community excited, then boom, everybody disappeared, coming back. So how can we create these best practices and funding opportunity that can be continuing? And I'm already talking to HUD and DHCD and Department of Labor. We have to have EJ in all the curriculum, in everything that we do, has to be connected so that we can see a greater impact. Because at the end of the day, the environment connects with all.
Other hub partners want to comment, best practices, solutions?
So, couple of things. I always love listening to our partners because they make me think of other things, but we'll never stop talking if I responded to all of that. But one of our best practices is that we administratively, we deliberately have someone looking at what we do right and enabling ourselves to be able to capture that best practice and to report out on it, so that as we're working, there's a whole different kind of paradigm when the people are doing the work on the ground, but there's something else when there's someone specifically looking for how we're going to interpret this and report it out to the community. And so as a result, we developed a strategy that has a three-part structure to it. What's the issue of the science? What's the real concern, and scientifically or environmentally? But the second part is, why should you care? You know, Philadelphia is one of the biggest, poorest cities in the United States, and Ms. Jones on 25th and Diamond got some other things on her mind besides PFAS and PFOA, you know? So when we're talking about all this scientific stuff, her concerns or her family's concerns may not line up with the scientific issue. But at the end of the day, we know that it's very intersectional work, that the environmental work has an impact on our health and our lives and our quality of life. So we make sure that everything we report out, once we identify what that issue is we create a value proposition of why we should care. And I think that is a part of a strategy that I think should be very intentional on our work, because we do a very good job with that and reporting out. We put out these quarterly newsletters and talk about the air quality and water quality, but from a perspective of why people should care. And then we talk about what you can do about it. So now, you know, once we got people interested in and making a connection between air quality on your health, for example, your respiratory concerns and your heart concerns, your hypertension, and all of the things that people are very familiar with. And then when we start talking about giving out purple air monitors to measure your particulate matter in your community, now that makes sense to them because they have established their value proposition. And I would love to see that we have a very intentional, from an administrative standpoint, folks is out there capturing from the hubs data and information around what you're doing right, what are you doing well, actually creating documentation. We should end up, we talk about community-informed publications, we should make certain that we're creating our own publications that comes out of the hubs talking about what does community science look like in terms of air quality? What does community science look like in terms of water quality? What does community science look like in terms of revitalizing brownfield sites and urban lands? And I think very intentionally from the start that we do that asset mapping and we make certain that we know what people have as a resource, but to be able to create documentation so that we can repeat that good practice over time, train these young people, right? So that they can get the benefit of our experiential knowledge.
We should contact, who's that editor-in-chief of environmental justice? Who's that person? I am. So I had not thought about that. I mean, I'm so just overwhelmed by all the work. So like that's a duh. Like, yeah, we should do that. We could have a Jerome, man. That's a yeah, man. I love what you just said. I mean, I love all what you just said. Like, yeah, like we could do that because environmental justice, you know, in my role as editor-in-chief, I'm trying to bring more community-driven publications. We could have a community TCTAC takeover of the journal. I mean, our TCTAC, I'll probably get in trouble and be too biased, but other TCTACs too, so it's just not our TCTAC. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna pass the mic before I get in trouble. Go ahead, Kim.
Yes, and we're the adopted child from Region 2, but
yeah, well, you know, we'll have your Region 2 TCTAC director on the call on the Zoom for the closing session. Go ahead.
yes, and but what's important, and I think, and Asada is a little shy, but you'll hear from her later. But what has been working for us, because Dr. Wilson and his team understand environmental justice and partner with the university for our Purple Air and Hyperlocal Air Monitoring Project, it's been a huge success. Now, in the past, we've worked with Rutgers University. We tend to never work with NJIT. But Newark is a university town. But because they grab for the money, they want to produce the document, it's just not based on justice, right? And they don't look at it through our lens. So it's just been so great, to do this project with Dr. Wilson and the Friends of the Earth, because the community can really see and benefit, and we own that data. We don't have to fuss and art, like, well, where is it? When is it? that is just things that we hope, we could continue to have those kind of relationships. And how can, like, Dr. Wilson and his staff, train these other universities, because we have to run all the way over here. I mean, I'm just saying.
We ain't that close. We are close, but we ain't that close. Yeah, it's a ride.
So that, but that is a great success for us, because, they understood our community must have a seat at the table, speak for themselves. And so we had our community advisory board, and it was a part of what was required in our relationship. It was like the same principles. So, I just wanted to lift that up, and thank you all. And Vivek, I don't know where he is.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Thank you for that. And just to add to that, we want to be justice focused, people-centered, justice focused. So you can flip it around, justice and people. But in our session we had the other day on the climate action hubs, because we are hubs. So we had a session on the Waverly Street Foundation funded hubs, climate action hubs, and that included a couple groups. I think California. Well, let me just say it this way: we had agroecology center at FAMU, so we had an HBCU hub, and we had two. Tim. Oh, thank you for that. Okay, we had two hubs that really talked a lot about indigenous issues. So we talking about best practice solutions. One of the things that came out of that discussion is we got to talk about trauma. Not get focused on talk about the trauma that our communities experience, intergenerational trauma, but how do we use resilience and also cultural wellness model? We talked about cultural wellness, but also culture-based education, culture-based learning, because that speaks to the point you just made. Folks in academia are coming from different cultural lens. It's a lens, again, I don't want to be too, I'm not gonna say it that way. It's kind of extractive in some, it's extractive science. Not everybody's doing that, but it's about publications, right? But not really the type of work that's gonna translate to real action, because that's how our system is set up for us. But we didn't have a system set up for y'all. So culture-based education, cultural wellness, resilience, and then also bringing in what we've learned from our indigenous brothers and sisters. There's a lot of that session. There was some great discussions around first foods, bringing back the bison, and just the power of that as it relates to addressing some of the trauma that they experienced, because it's like they hadn't gone to a certain area, now they brought the bison back. Now the indigenous folks, they see that land is back. It's like the land back piece, right? So very powerful in how we can bring in some of those indigenous traditions and supporting community cultural knowledge systems into our work, valuing, as you just said, Kim. I said a lot. I'm gonna pass the mic. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. I really don't want us to lose focus on how powerful storytelling is. And the reason why I say that, I think a lot of times we do wonderful work in the communities, but we forget the voices that are in the communities. And because we get very heavy content, we do know that in this field, we tend to lose a lot of people in the community, because like the gentleman said over here, Miss So-and-so, she may not can compare or make relatable to what her daily issues are compared to while we're in her community trying to save her community, and let alone trying to train her to help her community. So let's not forget how powerful storytelling is, right? And then how we can just simplify things. A lot of times we get so big in our heads with these big grand ideas that we forget the simplicity of the thing called life, right? Like one word from one person, each person teach another person, and just how powerful a conversation can be with someone. So storytelling, not making things big paragraphs, not using these really big technical words, but powerful phrases, right? People are on their phone 24 hours a day. What campaigning can we use to catch people's attention on the TikToks, on the Instagrams? Like utilizing these things, we're looking so much outside of where people are not using. People are using their phones, right? People are not even on laptops anymore. They're on their phones. So what campaigns, what powerful messages that we can use to help them to bring their story to front? They don't need to see our faces all the time. They need to see the faces of themselves and their community that's telling their story, so that it can be more powerful for us to get those fundings. Maybe Congress and all those people can do the extra that they need to do, because they're not hearing it from us in a scientific way, but they're hearing it from the voices in the community. So thank you.
Hey, just a plug for one of our sessions. Dr. Rika Wilson is doing a session on Saturday called On Narratives and Storytelling. Narrative justice. So just want to share that as a very important, what you just stated. And we had another session from Winnick's Red Elk, was it Winnick's Red Elk, and her first food session. It was a narrative storytelling session about first foods. So I just want to again co-sign on what you just said. Go ahead, Sabrina.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Rhodes. I'm a community organizer in Ivy City with Empower DC. And first, I am a community member. Our community has been neglected, marginalized, treated very badly by the district and by businesses that has come into our community and is polluting our community. So with all the strategizing and the data and the information that's being collected, we still have to fight against these industries. We still have to fight against the policymakers that have put these industries in our community in the first place. Then on top of that, like someone said, we're traumatized and we're beat down and tired. So that's how come people are moving out and leaving, because they're tired. And so when you come into the communities and have a solution, we have to get to the root of it, which is these industries that's polluting us in the first place. The urban planning. Who is planning our community? Who is planning the city? And what are they putting in our communities? And is it for us or is it for profit? And then when you look at it, a lot of the elected officials, they're for profit. They're for these industries. And they're backing these industries. So we have to fight against the elected officials. We have to fight against the businesses. We have to fight against the lawyers with all this money that represent the businesses. So we got to learn how to do that as well, on top of storytelling, learning the data, learning what's polluting us, learning the names of all of these things that are polluting us. So we have to start low and then reach the heights. But again, like you said, Stacey, people come into our communities and they have all these big words and they know all this stuff, and we don't know all this stuff. We need to be educated. And a lot of people don't have internet service. Like you said earlier, Shakobi, a lot of people don't have internet, don't know how to use the computer, don't know how to use the phones. So basically, they're getting their information verbally and from the grassroots organizations that are in the communities that need to be educated to be able to relay this information to especially seniors and getting the children involved.
No, you make a really good point, and I think how to say this the right way. So it gets back to Parisa's point too. Like, what are the true costs, right, Parisa? Of you adding what Sabrina just said, the true cost of doing that, getting to those communities, doing the basic education of building up. That's a lot of work. And so, how do we provide the resources for the hubs and the other partners that are going to be working with the hubs to do that well? I would say we don't have all the money in our budget to do what you outlined. So what are some additional dollars that we need to bring in to make that happen? What are some groups we can leverage to make that happen? So I just want to just note that for the record. That's another thing to see, to make sure our TCTAC has been as responsive as possible to the needs of communities, that we got to make sure we are getting to the basic needs, right? Those basic needs. And I think I'll stop there. Go ahead, Maria.
So I want to, remember how I said we have this little weaving basket?
4 minutes.
Okay. I showed Dee this morning. Laura Schmidt, who had done community research with us, was one of the Justice Scholars. Came out into the community, did a health impact. I don't know if you saw it. Beautiful. I sent it to you yesterday, but I know you're busy. But anyway, in the community, literally, every single person knew what environmental justice was. This is a community, the one that I was talking about, that the two closest communities to the industry coming in One is Haitian Creole, English as a second language. One was Latinx, English as a second language. Every one of them on the health impact assessment wrote out what environmental justice is. Half of the room had an income of $0 to $30,000. So that's the value of what we're all doing here together, to have communities that understand the intersections of public health and exposure, to have them understand that they can advocate for themselves and the importance of participating in these kind of surveys. And the translation, because that's a big part of it, like you were saying. I'm sorry, I'm Italian. I talk with my hands all the time.
So
But that's success.
that is success. I appreciate you almost ending our session. So I know we started a little bit late, but we want to get the food and we got a lot of moving pieces. So we got 2 minutes left. I'm gonna leave. Queen, you had the last comment.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, I just wanted to turn the tides a little bit because we was talking about successes. So we mentioned health, and I just wanted to say one of the things that United Parents Against Lead has done, we we built a labyrinth. If those who are familiar with the labyrinth, to address mental wellness. Someone said how this work is it's very tiring, it's draining. So we built a labyrinth and behind the UPAL's building in Richmond, UPAL's Community Garden Labyrinth, for people to come and walk. So address the physical, especially after being locked in with COVID, which is on the rise again, being locked in for 2 years with COVID. So as a way for people to get outdoors. So it was through a Get Outdoors grant in Virginia that we were able to install a permanent labyrinth for people to come and walk out the stresses, walk out the tension, and address mental wellness because trauma. That's real. We deal with this every day. So that's one thing that UPAL has done. Then finally, I want to say that we ask that we not sell ourselves short when we talk about capacity. United Parents Against Lead, we successfully implemented a $2 million grant from Housing and Urban Development. The city of Richmond forfeited $1.5 million. City of Petersburg lost a $1.1 million grant. And these are localities. So who has more capacity, has the resources, have staff than city government? But yet we, a small organization, United Parents Against Lead, successfully implemented a $2 million HUD grant where we tested over 100 homes. We remediated 80 homes for lead hazards. So when we talk about capacity, let's try not to sell ourselves short. Yes, we need to build capacity, but some of us already have that capacity and are doing the work. So that's, I would like to leave us with that. Thank you.
I want to leave it to you, but we at 12:30 now. So
Okay.
Go ahead, pass the mic.
Last word to the.
I got you, Paul.
Could I just say, first of all, that unfortunately, we booked Shoshana Campbell from the South Baltimore Community Land Trust in another session. So please communicate with Shoshana. The SBLCT is a very important part of the group. Thank you.
Yeah.
What I wanted to share a little bit is basically about the lines of business and being more casual towards our audiences. Like if we're trying to spread environmental justice to others, we can't see them as another community that we conquered. We had to see them as individuals, as different people with different personalities. And so I think instead of just trying to say, hey, let's do a big event where we talk about environmental justice and let's do some type of community outreach, we definitely need to try to reach to these people individually, maybe just by talking, to your friends about it, to people that try to implement casual conversations to environmental justice instead of trying to make it more in a business sense that this is environmental justice, this is what we do. People are going to keep separating environmental justice from their lives. And so if we try to implement everyday lives with environmental justice, together instead of just trying to make environmental justice or climate change its own category, then slowly people will start to implement solutions and things like that in their lives, in their daily lives, whether it's at home or at work. And so that's just kind of what I wanted to share.
Great closing point. Make it every day, make it proximal, make it pocketbook. Food, faith, family, health, and jobs. Where we live, where we work, where we play, where we pray, where we learn. That's EJ. Thanks for that. Thanks everybody for this session. Appreciate it. Let's go ahead and give everybody a round of applause. We're gonna move into the lunch period. I know we have others coming from other sessions. It's gonna probably take us some time for folks to transition in and also for us to get for our lunch. So if you want to go ahead and get your, I think we have box lunch. Is that right? Paul, box lunch? They're ready to go? Okay, so get your box lunches and we'll get together and also move your chairs back, please. And we'll get ready for this plenary, but get your box lunches first.
Can I just ask, those who have not met Majestic, introduce yourselves?